Nothing like cold coffee, eh? The Timberwolves suck. Why? Why is it every time I make the trip down there they lose? And this time they didn't lose in a close game. They got blown out by a Washington Wizards team who had virtually nobody playing. I was irate, but I did run into a fan. His name was Ray. He was super excited to see me, asked me if I'd mention him in the video. I said sure. So Ray, nice to meet ya. Alright, what is going on everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today's video we are going to be going back to a list, but not any list. Today I'm going to be giving you guys every single NFL team's GOAT. Again, these are going to be personal opinions. I'm probably going to mess up on a lot of them because there's a lot of old heads who are going to think like the 1920 guys are better. I like to use names that people know actually, and they don't have to go look them up. Then you get some black and white picture of a guy with a leather hat on and a swirly mustache. Nobody knows who those guys are. One quick thing before we hop into the video, head over to gfuel.com, use code WyattzWorld, save yourself a discount on any G Fuel products, and let's hop into every team's greatest player of all time. Okay, so starting with the Dolphins though, their GOAT is Dan Marino. Like 61,000 passing yards and over 400 touchdowns. He's won essentially every award you can win besides a damn Super Bowl ring. If it's not Dan, then it's gonna be that defensive end. Jason Taylor. Up next, we've got the Titans. I think the greatest player of all time is currently playing on their team, but he hasn't hit that point yet, so probably Eddie George or CJ2K. I don't know, I didn't think Steve McNair was that great. Like, yeah, he's a legend to the organization, but I don't think he was your GOAT. Moving on, we've got the Falcons. Like three guys that come to my mind here, but you know, you gotta kind of pick one. Honorable mention, for me, it's biased, Mike Vick, just because I love him to death, but he's not, you know, he wasn't the greatest. Gotta be prime timer Julio. I want to say Julio Jones, man. I think that he was the greatest talent to ever walk in there. Moving on, we've got the Jets. I think the GOAT is Darrelle Revis. People are gonna say Broadway Joe. He was fucking terrible. Now, did I get to watch Joe play? No. But you're gonna tell me your greatest player ever is below 500 with a completion percentage of 50%, 173 touchdowns and 220 picks? Dog shit. Moving on, we've got the Cardinals, Larry Fitzgerald. They've had some great players there, but Larry has 17,000 yards and 120 touchdowns. He's not one of the greatest players only in Arizona. He's one of the greatest players ever. Moving on, we've got the Ravens, and I'm going to say Ray Lewis, one of the most menacing linebackers in the history of the game. Now, Ed Reed is an honorable mention there, but I feel like if you walked around the city of Baltimore knocking on doors and you said who is the greatest Raven of all time, majority of them are going to say Ray Lewis. Okay, and up next, we've got the Bengals. I'm going with Chad Ochocinco. He had about a 10-year prime, and he was one of the most electric players in the league for a long time. Now, I would like to also point out, much like the Tennessee Titans, I think the greatest player that has ever played on their team is currently rostered, but he's got to play a lot longer than he has. He's only been around 2 years. Up next, we've got the Browns. This is the one where I'll say an old head because I do see him around in all the Madden games. He's pretty much plastered all over Cleveland as the Babe Ruth there, and that's Jim Brown, the running back. If it's not Jim Brown, you want to go to a little bit of the newer era, it's going to be clearly Joe Thomas. One of the greatest tackles to ever play. Up next, we've got the Jags. I did have to dig in and do some research here because I didn't know who the fuck to say. With me, unconfidently, but hopefully I don't sound like an ass, I'm going to say Fred Taylor or Jimmy Smith. I like running backs, I guess I'll take Fred Taylor. Moving on, we've got the Lions, Barry Sanders, the GOAT of GOATs. You ever want to just laugh? Go look at his numbers. If you just want a good laugh. Up next, we've got the Vikings. That is Moss. Yes, there's been great Minnesota Vikings over the years. Alan Page, John Randall, Fran Tarkenton, you know, all of them are on my dad's wall in the basement, but I gotta say Randy Moss is the most polarizing figure to come out of Minnesota or ever play in Minnesota. Up next, we've got the Broncos. This one's really fucking difficult too because I honestly want to say Peyton Manning, but that would be ridiculous. Even without Peyton in the discussion, you got John Elway, who's the obvious choice, or Champ Bailey, or Shannon Sharp. Terrell Davis, like what? I'll say John Elway though. Moving on, we've got the Washington Commanders, who way back then were a name that we will not speak of because I don't want to get canceled. Will not lie to you guys, I had to dig in a little bit on this one too, and I'm gonna go with Darryl Green. He was a corner. Retired in like 02. He has a few Super Bowl rings, a ton of All-Pros, a Pro Bowl, Hall of Fame jacket, you name it, he's got it. Moving on, we've got the Kansas City Chiefs. Not Mahomes yet. Do I think he will end as the greatest Chief ever? Obviously. But I still like Tony Gonzalez. I still think that he is a staple there. He was so good, so dominant for so long. 15,000 receiving yards, 110 touchdowns. Arguably the GOAT. Not just of his team, but of his position ever. Moving on, we've got the Steelers. This one I didn't have to think about because I've played so much Madden Superstar KO. Mean Joe Green. Not him, I would say Troy, because I do have a fascination with Troy. Joe Green had 4 fucking Super Bowl rings. He's obviously in the Hall of Fame. Was Defensive Player of the Year a couple times, had 10 Pro Bowls, several All-Pros. I think it's pretty cut and dry. Up next, we've got the Panthers, and this one you kind of had to toddle with too. Luke Kuechly was fantastic. Prime Cam Newton was fantastic for what that organization has had. But I'd probably say Steve Smith, the receiver. Not sure about his touchdowns, but he had nearly 15,000 yards. And where did he end his career at? I want to say Baltimore. Moving on, we got my boys, the Bills. We know who the GOAT is. He's playing right now. But given the fact that he's only been around for 4 years, I can't say Josh. That wouldn't be fair. Legend I was always taught, was clearly Jim Kelly. If it wasn't Jim Kelly, it'd be Truman Thomas, Bruce Smith, or Andre Reed. I can't say OJ. Come on, that's just ridiculous. Moving on, we've got the 49ers, a silly one that you could say 12,000 people. Yeah, the true answer is Jerry Rice, but they've had so many superstars in their lifetime, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I gotta go with the greatest wide receiver to ever live. Debatably. Moving on, we've got the Seahawks. It's either Russ or Steve Largent. Honestly, I think probably Russ. Got you guys a championship. Nearly 2 of them should have been 2. Should definitely be known as your guys' GOAT, in my opinion. Following the Seattle Seahawks, we got Green Bay. 2 guys, man. What one knows? At Favre or is it Rodgers? We all know that Rodgers is better than Favre. But Favre he's the legend. The gunslinger, the flamethrower. I'll ruffle some feathers. If I think of the Green Bay Packers as an all-time team, Brett Favre is the first man that comes to my mind. I think he is your GOAT. And I know I'm wrong saying that if we're talking talent. Up next, we've got the Bears, Walter Payton. They've had some great players too. They've had great defensive players, Urlacher, Mike Singletary. But 16,000 yards, 100 plus touchdowns, Super Bowls, Hall of Fame jackets, Pro Bowls, All-Pros. Every single person on planet Earth knows who Walter Payton is. Moving on, we've got the Dallas Cowboys. Emmitt Smith or Jason Witten, probably. Jason Witten, he sucks in the fact that I just don't like the guy, but he had one of the greatest careers ever for a tight end. But you got the all-time rushing leader with 18,000 yards and 160 touchdowns. Think Emmitt Smith wins that war. Moving on, we've got the Texans. Andre Johnson, J.J. Watt, or Arian Foster, if I had to think of 3. I'm not gonna lie, I think prime J.J. was probably the greatest Texan ever, though. Relatively new team, so it would make sense. Moving on, we've got the Chargers. LaDainian Tomlinson. One of the greatest running backs ever as well. He almost had 150 touchdowns, over 13,000 rushing yards. Every accolade besides a Super Bowl you can have. Honestly, maybe not. I don't know if he won MVP or not. Up next, we've got the Rams. Aaron Donald. I think he's the greatest Ram ever. If I didn't say him, I'd probably say like Kurt Warner or Eric Dickerson or Marshall Faulk. But Donald is my GOAT there. Moving on, we've got the Raiders. I'm going to go with another oldie here, Tim Brown. Not that old, but he just had a long career that lasted until the early 2000s. Wish I could say Bo, but I can't. Otherwise, there's that guard, Gene Upshaw. Up next, we've got the Saints. That is Drew Brees. Following him, we've got the Patriots. Tom Brady. Oh, a lot of these are actually kind of obvious. Jesus Christ. Moving on from that, we've got the Giants, and that is Lawrence Taylor. Wildly considered the greatest defensive player of all time. Sad that you don't even think of Strahan or Eli when you look at that team and think of the GOAT. Moving on, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That would be Derek Brooks or John Lynch, probably. Tom wins another Super Bowl, maybe he can have that title. And when Mike Evans' career ends, maybe he can have that title, but not quite yet. Probably go with Derek Brooks, though. Up next, second to last, is the Eagles. Reggie White or Brian Dawkins? I would probably say Brian Dawkins. My favorite player of all time is Cunningham there, but he's not the GOAT. And finally, we've got the Colts, and it's a very obvious one. It is just kidding, Peyton Manning. Arguably the greatest quarterback ever. If Tom Brady isn't your GOAT, then there's a very good chance Peyton Manning is. Or Joe Montana. Anyway, guys, that is all for every NFL team's GOAT. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you guys did, you already know what to do. Comment, like, subscribe, turn that bell on. I do my best to post every single day. Not sure what we'll do the rest of the week, but I'll find something hopefully to entertain you guys. With everything I just said, I'm going to hop off and edit this shit so you guys can watch it on time. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day, and as always, I will see you in the next video.